Welcome to the Volunteer and Combination Officers section webinar series. This week, we are very excited, not several reasons to be excited. One, we have 93 people registered for a fire prevention program. Talk about fire prevention, which we know is not always very popular in the fire service. And so we're looking forward to those that are attending and then those that will watch it when it's being recorded. But we also have a very good presentation, so we'll get into that here in a second. As is normal, we use voice over IP technology. And so if your screen freezes up, log out, log back in is the first piece of advice that I give you. I'm not a computer nerd, but that's my experience in using these. And sometimes I might disappear because that happens to my computer. So we do have a chat session. I will be monitoring that and question and answers. Most people don't use the question and answer session. They use the chat section, and we'll be monitoring that. So if Mike says something and you want to question him or you agree, disagree, please talk to us in the chat or question and answer. There are no handouts for this in particular, uh, but obviously Mike can talk to you about where handouts can be obtained in his talk. So some of the things that the VCOS does, not just the webinars. I'm not going to read you the stuff here on the screen there, but I think one of the bigger things that we've done in the last couple of years is we have a great partnership with the National Volunteer Fire Council. And for many years, it was like NVFC did their thing and VCOS did their thing. And we weren't, left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing. But we have a great relationship with them now. And we're working hard to keep that. One of our big, well, before I get to that. So then we have a partnership with Vector Solutions. If you currently don't use their program, on using it for training purposes. The VCOS encourage you to go to their site and you'll get a discount and the setup fees will be waived. So if you're not using Vector Solutions for recording your training, for producing some training and your training records, the VCOS encourages you to do that. Symposium in the Sun is coming up in about a week, and we have over 600 people registered. We have had 6 people cancel. So, and some of them were unforeseeable, like surgery. One is having mandatory training. And so, but all in all, we're still having lots of people coming to Florida for Symposium in the Sun, and we're looking forward to that. This Technology Summit in December, I encourage all fire service leaders, you got to start paying attention to technology. Back when I started, yes, Ben Franklin was around and there was horse and buggies, and then we got the steam pumpers. But today, the technology is what drives the fire service. And yes, we worry about technology, but it works. And but you need to learn what's going on and what's coming up in the technology area as well. So there's other 2025 events over there that you can think about. So our presenter today is Lieutenant Michael McClear, who is the president of E.S.C.A.P.E Safety Services, which he founded in 1995. And what E.S.C.A.P.E is about delivering safe, effective, and economical fire and life safety training to children and adults. Every firefighter knows how horrible it is to pick up someone who has passed on unnecessarily. And we have to be better at fire prevention and reducing harm. So he's been a member of the fire service for over 25 years. He joined Michigan's fire service after he learned about the high number of children who were dying in home fires. He was hired by the Merrimack, Massachusetts Fire Department. Think about that. Michigan, Massachusetts. They're not even connected. But the key reason that Michael found about why children die was they panic in fire and smoke conditions or when they hear the sound of the smoke alarm instead of evacuating. So he's probably one of an exclusive group of firefighters who remember our primary job is to prevent harm, save lives, and suppress fires that do occur. So, with that introduction, let me turn it over to Lieutenant Mike. I know he's retired, but you earn that rank, and so I will use that rank, Michael. But Lieutenant Michael McLear to do some opening comments.
Thank you, Chief. I'm really honored to be here. And again, ESCAPE stands for Education Showing Children and Adults Procedures for Evacuations. And it's just that there's ways that we can empower groups of people, children and adults, in being prepared for a home fire, because home fires happen, as we know, at any time. And the number one leading cause of the deaths are non-working smoke alarms. So we continue to expand our advocacy to work with our media partners and continue to expand outreach. And we're finding here in Michigan, I've retired from Massachusetts. I still spend time out there. Was out there last week doing some training. But we find that roughly 85% of the homes where fire fatalities have occurred here in Michigan and in many other states have zero working smoke alarms. And that's just, it's unbelievable still to this day and age where people don't think fires are going to happen to them. And a simple mitigation device as a smoke alarm is that early notification, buying us time to be able to get out and stay out. And over the years, we added a fire safety demonstration trailer, and that's been very successful. We take that out to communities and into schools. And that was scaled back, unfortunately, with COVID. So we had to get creative. Chief, when you were talking about technology, we had to find different ways that we could still continue outreach. And I think opportunities like this, webinars, Zoom, Teams, the technology that's out there, we need to find ways that we can continue to connect the message with all age groups to be able to expand their knowledge and share our knowledge with them so that they are better prepared. And our numbers show that when we educate early and we educate often, children, adolescents, and adults do know what to do and know how to appropriately handle an emergency safely and quickly, and they're able to survive that unthinkable event.
Wow. Okay, Michael. Thank you very much. I make lots of notes, so it's not that I'm ignoring you, but that's the way the old guy has to remember. But the technology part, let me just talk about that a little bit, because here's the old guy saying, I believe this type of virtual meeting is the wave of the future. I have so many instructors who go, oh no, I need podium time. Well, guess what? The students don't care about your podium time. So when
Right.
you look at what your program is not about podium time, it is about hands-on, teaching them what to do, how to do. So maybe explain a little bit more about what it is you teach.
Sure. So when we first started, actually, October 10th of this year begins our 30th year. And I look back and I think, wow, October 10th, 1995 was our very first school-based presentation. And here we are 30 years later with over 1 million kids and families that have gone through the program. And what we found is many times we found children hiding under beds, hiding in the closet, or hiding in the shower or bathtub because they thought they could hide from the fire. And as we all know, it's the smoke that kills. So we built our first fire safety demonstration trailer, and this was before Scotty and Surrey and some of the other commercially built trailers were even widely available. We built a 27-foot trailer with a bed, with a closet in it, and we actually showed people what they could do and then brought theatrical fog in with a smoke machine that could have them understand and experience smoke-filled conditions. They wouldn't be able to see their hand in front of their face and the demarcation point of the bad air goes up, the smoke goes up, the good air is down. So when they crawl low underneath the smoke, they're able to get out and stay out, go outside to that meeting place. And it is just that. It's all hands-on. We start with preschool, and then we work our way up through kindergarten, through elementary school, middle school, and even we've been successful in high schools talking about some of the historical fires like the Coconut Grove nightclub fire or Beverly Hills Supper Club fire, or even the Station nightclub fire in West Warwick, Rhode Island, one of the more recent ones that happened a decade ago, more than a decade ago. So there are opportunities to engage and make sure that that outreach is age and developmentally appropriate. Got to give a shout out, though, to our National Fire Academy. That's really where I learned a lot of the fundamentals. I am also an adjunct instructor, contract instructor at the National Fire Academy, and I too work very, very closely with the National Volunteer Fire Council, because it is important for us to share these opportunities that are available. And sometimes we need to think of ourselves. A good friend of mine in broadcast media always stated, we need to be the conduit. We need to bring needs and resources together. And many times when people are shown, our firefighters and our fire life safety experts are shown the path to success, they can better understand tools that are available to keep their community safe. And that's really what community risk reduction is all about, is identifying the risk, understanding the actual or potential risks, and then coming up with the intervention strategies to be able to either prevent and mitigate those risks. Back when I started, we didn't know the term community risk reduction, but now we understand it much better and much more effectively, as it's all encompassing. And we've continued to adapt our program and continue to add evaluation methods so that we can really see that knowledge gain, behavior change, which is so important, because many times for years, and when I first got into the fire service, we just were teaching the methods. We weren't evaluating to make sure that the students actually understood that information weeks, months, or even years later. And in Massachusetts, we have a great program called Student Awareness of Fire Education, the SAFE program. And it's run right through the Department of Fire Services. And of our 351 towns, we have well over 215 to 220 towns that participate in a grant every year. And they're able to use that money to have personnel go into the classrooms, and they have to meet certain educational knowledge experience so that they have the presentation skills, but also are subject matter experts and understand how to deliver fire life safety education. So it's been a good 30 years. There's been a lot that's changed, but anyone on this webinar today, I would encourage you to continue to reach out, continue to attend the National Fire Academy. If you've never been, there's opportunities both at the state levels. Talk with your state training director. If you don't have the opportunity to go to Emmitsburg, Maryland, and also there's other advocates and other organizations to work with, like Vision 2020, again, the National Volunteer Fire Council, and also NFPA, all have great resources on outcomes, public education, evaluation, community risk reduction, risk assessments, all the things we need to be doing. It's not just a 5-minute presentation anymore. There's a lot of work that goes into making sure that our programs are age and developmentally appropriate to make sure that we're raising that knowledge and awareness in all of our communities. Our communities are all different, so we need to make sure that our message matches our communities. And not everyone speaks one language anymore. So now we're seeing more and more programs are multilingual, and something that I didn't experience when I first got into the fire service 30 years ago.
Well, interesting comments, and I do want to just get off the subject for a second here. We've got some really good couple friends in the weight room or in the chat session. Chief Ken Richards from Mystic, Ohio. He's here a lot of times. But we have Norway. We have a person from Norway here. Several from Canada, Alberta, and a couple others from Canada. And so a couple, I don't know exactly where they're from, but we're glad you're all here, and we'll keep moving ahead here. So you talked about the evaluation methods, and that is so important. So maybe can you give me a couple examples of the evaluation methods that you share?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I've learned over the years is evaluation can be multifaceted. Sometimes we look at, especially with our youth fire setting program, we look at pre and post tests. We look at the baseline knowledge of what the children and the parents know, or what they think they know about fire safety, fire science, fire survival. And then once they attend a youth fire intervention program, we give that same tests, and it's a combination of multiple choice, true, false, essay, fill in the blank, and we see the scores dramatically increase, because what they thought they knew about fire many times was the perception from Hollywood. It was what they've seen on their favorite television program. They thought that they had 30 minutes to get out of a fire. They thought when one sprinkler had activated, they all activate. And we're able to clear up those myths and misconceptions and have them practice fire safety, not just during 1 week or 1 month out of the year, but all throughout the year. And that's what's so important. So pre and post tests, skills evaluation, the knowledge gain, and certainly customizing, taking that baseline knowledge of what people do understand about safety and survival and filling in the gaps on what they don't know. And again, doing it in a very positive way. So we're informative. We never want to be disrespectful to our citizens because we are the subject matter experts and we need to share some of that knowledge with them so that they can be the leaders and really the subject matter experts in their households. They know their homes better than anybody else. And if we share with them some of those hazards, some of those risks, whether it's heating, whether it's unattended candles, whether it's unattended cooking, or some of the other leading causes of home fires, overloading electrical outlets. In fact, in my career, one home I saw 16 power strips daisy chained together, and that family had a fire. And with entertainment systems, with a lot of the electronics that we have, people get creative and they'll do it in a economical way in their mind, but it may not be the safest choice. And I find when we can engage the audience and we can share information, now that light bulb goes off in their mind, and without calling them out and saying they're acting in an unsafe way, many times they'll be forward and say, you know what, I did what you just said not to do, and we're going to change how we address that. We're going to now sleep with our bedroom doors closed. We're going to be able to practice our home fire escape plan. We have a grandma that lives with us now, and she's non-ambulatory. We never thought about relocating her bedroom on a main level close to an exit. It's those types of things that we have the ability as firefighters and fire and life safety specialists to be able to educate, empower, and inform.
Wow. So you're right. One of your statements, I'll probably change it a little bit, but you said the public doesn't understand fire safety.
Right.
That's why they daisy chain the electric outlets, because it's a cheap way. I go to wherever what store and buy one for $10, and I'm home and I'm happy.
Right.
But wow, I got to tell you, and I've done fire prevention. We built a survival live house here in Indiana, 40 by 60. We did the bedroom, little theater, all that kind of stuff. Never have I thought about having a written test before I left that school. Wow. Whether it's 3 questions or 5
Mm-hmm.
questions, doesn't have to be 50, but just what are the key points? So I think that Mike, that is a lieutenant, that is a big takeaway
Mm-hmm.
to this presentation. The evaluation instrument doesn't have to be complicated, just have one.
And Chief, it could even be questions that you verbally ask the students at the beginning of the session to establish that baseline. It doesn't always have to be in writing. It can be questions that you're asking more of an informal basis, but as the facilitator, you're able to understand the various different levels of knowledge of that audience and be able to maximize that presentation for all participants, adults, children, adolescents, everyone in between. And then when you finish up that presentation, again, asking some of those important questions. I usually like to emphasize my key teaching points at least 3 times. I have an early childhood education background, something that I acquired when I got into the fire service because I wanted to be able to have a better understanding of why firefighters were not able to always get into the classroom. And when I sat down with administrators, when I sat down with superintendents, principals, teachers, they love the fire service, but there are so many time constraints in today's educational system with starting back with No Child Left Behind, a race to the top, now with Common Core, that we need to find ways, and our Massachusetts Student Awareness of Fire Education program does that. We're able to tie our safety messages in through language arts, through mathematics, through history, through English. So we're actually going in as a guest lecturer and we're facilitating the similar lesson plans, but as a subject matter expert, we're doing it in that safety component. And I have yet to this day ever had a school turn us away once we show them our lesson plan, which again, Goes right back to our fire instructor one or public fire and life safety educator one, having a lesson plan, something that you can refer back to, especially when things get chaotic, and you won't forget teaching points, and making sure, again, it's age and developmentally appropriate. Too many times I see new firefighters that are very proficient on firefighting really lack the skills as a public educator because they are used to working with other firefighters. And when we have a pump operator trying to show the apparatus to kindergartners, one of the big mistakes that I've seen, and it's nobody's fault because they've never been taught this, kindergartners don't need to be taught friction loss. That's way above and beyond their head and above and beyond that level of knowledge that they need to know. But what they can understand is water goes through the hose. And the more water we have, the bigger the fire is going to go out. Simple messages is always important. And that's where our teachers were so instrumental in our first 5 years of the program from 1995 to 2000. And every year before I would release our Fire Prevention Week lesson plan, I'd have my educators look at it. There's nothing wrong with having educators on your stakeholders group. And in fact, I would strongly encourage that because everyone's in this for success. And I would rather have the educators and the educational cadre blow holes in my lesson plan. Hey, I didn't think about that. Or I didn't think about the mixed message that this would send out. And they are an invaluable resource to everyone on this webinar today. Build those partnerships early and often with your teaching community. And another partner, Chief, as you and I know, broadcast media. Broadcast media has been with me for 30 years, and I've worked in broadcast media. Just coincidentally, when I went to a Rotary meeting and we started talking about, ladies and gentlemen, did you know a lot of kids die in home fires? And one of the Rotarians was a general manager of an ABC affiliate television station here in West Michigan, and I've been with them ever since. I made a move to another TV station last year, but they are able to get our messaging out there. And whether it's TV or radio, they're always thirsty for content. This week, great opportunity to talk about Halloween fire safety tips. Another few weeks, we'll be into Thanksgiving. There's always seasonal tips that we can talk about. And when you become that trusted expert, you'll be the go-to each and every time they've got a breaking story that they need advice on.
Yeah. Good comments. I'm going to come back to that non-working smoke detector comment you made at the very beginning, but I want to talk about the school competing for time and money. As I said, we built a Survive Alive. I've been retired for 12 years, and it's pretty much dormant because the school system said a couple things. We can't afford the bus ride, and so that is an issue. And even when we had the local union and the volunteer firefighters even go to the school board, we're not successful in convincing them that this is a priority. So do you have any advice for those on the webinar of like how do you sell the program? Because it does cost the school money.
Absolutely. Great question, Chief. So what I usually like to do and what my chief and I would do, and my chief had a very strong public education program already established before I came on board in 2000. This is in Merrimack, Massachusetts. Chief was a very big advocate. He and I actually sat down with the school superintendent and we brainstormed this idea of, instead of having 1 hour a year to talk about fire and life safety topics, how about if we could do it monthly or quarterly? And we can raise the awareness so the students in the schools are champions or advocates, and they're actually the safety advocates when they go home. And once we started that conversation, years later, the superintendent came to us and said, hey, I have an idea. Would you all be interested in? This is part of what partnerships are all about. And when we talked about early on children dying in home fires, and we started looking at the statistics in Massachusetts and surrounding communities, like-sized communities to the town of Merrimack, that was kind of the hook. That was kind of the really the passionate part, that the superintendent said, wow, it's just a matter of time. This could happen in our regional school district. We have 3 towns that make up our regional school district. Absolutely, we're definitely on board. And we sat down with the teachers. and we had the teachers help write the lesson plan. So again, part of being stakeholders is everyone has a voice at the table. Too often, what I find, Chief, is we wait until the week before Fire Prevention Week to make that contact with the schools. And I will tell you, many of the building principals already have the fall schedule in place by May or early June. So we need to think ahead, and the fire service does a great job with we respond when people are having the worst day of their lives. But part of the community risk reduction process is we need to be looking 3 to 6 months ahead as far as what we plan on doing and how we're going to be able to engage the students and the audience. So having those conversations and making sure that you're there to reciprocate. When the schools ask for something, are you able to reciprocate back with them? Because too many times I've seen that the fire department wants to go in and they want to do presentations, but then if the school asks, hey, can we have a career day? Can somebody from the fire department be there? And we'll give you ample time and we'll set the date around your schedule. And then the fire department says yes, and then the day of the event, nobody shows up. That leaves a bad taste in the school's mind as well. So we've got to be willing to give and take. We've got to be willing to sit down and have those discussions and find that common ground. And that's the big thing, finding the common ground. Email isn't going to work. You've got to find that opportunity and really talk about, look, we're not in the schools. What can we do to be able to keep your students safe? And make it about that administrator. It's not about the fire department at that point. It's about how that school administrator can be really labeled as being a champion in the community. And
Right.
the success of our program was because of our schools and our administrators and our teachers, our educators. It wasn't anything beyond that, because they were very important stakeholders. And many times, like I said, we're late in reaching out, or they let us in, but they'll only let us in for an hour because, well, it's the fire department and, you know, the kids of the firefighters go to the school. It's almost like the sympathy. They have to let them in. But let's make it more than that. Let's make it more of a dynamic outreach. And in the wintertime, we talk about cold ice and cold water safety. So in Merrimack, we're not too far from the Atlantic Ocean, and we have a tidal river that goes through our community. And many years ago, we actually had 5 students that went out on the ice and fell through the ice when the tide went out, and they couldn't get out, and they drowned when the tide came back in. And so it doesn't just have to be about fire and safety, or firefighting safety, or fire safety rather. It can be any type of life safety hazard. Community CPR. Many of the schools I know here in Michigan and in Massachusetts, students are exposed to CPR, hands-only CPR, before they graduate. So sometime in that high school year, why not have the firefighter or the firefighter emergency medical responder, firefighter EMT go in and help facilitate those types of classes? That's part of that public-private partnership is my boss, the state fire marshal of Massachusetts, talked about, and my fire chief talked about. It's all about building those partnerships and maintaining those partnerships, especially as teachers retire, especially as superintendents move on. It's a very involved, but a very beneficial ongoing process.
Right. Wow. Good. Again, good information. I'm going to talk to the attendees who are on there, listening, and maybe you can share some of the ways that you communicate. Because, Lieutenant, I want to go back to communications
Mhm.
with the platforms that are out there, because I have a face for radio, not for television, but the kids are all about video.
Yes.
So, do you use some video, not necessarily in the classroom, but some video platforms to share stuff throughout the year?
Yes, we do. And again, I'll reference Massachusetts. We have some really good programs where either our schools or throughout the entire Commonwealth, we're utilizing media technology. And especially when they get into the upper elementary or the middle school, there's opportunities. So I came up with an idea in 2005. It was twofold. It was an evaluation, but it was also student engagement. 5 years into the program, I wanted to see what fire safety messages were sticking and what ones we needed to work on. And I approached the principal of our upper elementary school. We have 2 elementary schools in town, one preschool through 2nd grade, and the other elementary is 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And I asked the principal, I said, I'd like to run a fire safety contest, subject to the teacher's permission. And I'd like to give them the month of October as a group, not individually, but as a class. And that's part of that creative learning and problem solving. What fire safety message would they teach others? That was the instruction. Pretty open ended. Of the 16 fire life safety messages we teach, the only one that every class missed, and third grade was graded against third grade, fourth against fourth. So every grade had a winning grade. No two ways out was the only message that was missed for some reason. That was the only one none of the classes picked. They picked get out and stay out, stop, drop, and roll, crawl low underneath the smoke, all the other messages, meeting place outside. But for some reason, not one class picked no two ways out, which is great from an evaluation. We had some that actually filmed a mock half-hour news program all about fire safety. All we told them is, what would you do to teach others about fire safety? It's pretty open-ended. They could draw. They could use video. One built a cardboard house. How cool is that? So there's a lot of different things that we can do. And when we get that community engagement and we get that school engagement, which the school is an active part of every community, it allows us that opportunity to be much more dynamic. And when we ask about, hey, can we come in? If I'm not on the phone with the schools in the spring, usually the principals or the teachers are reaching out to me. Hey, we're setting the fall schedule. When can you bring the fire safety trailer by? And inside the trailer, we'll actually show an age-appropriate video that's no more than about 7 to 9 minutes long, just enough to kind of talk about the topic at hand. And then we go through that skills demonstration. We bring the theatrical fog in. We actually show them two ways out. One way, they feel the door with the back of their hand. If that door is warm, what does that represent? Oh, there's fire on the other side. These are all things, again, that we build up in that teaching process. I usually teach 2 messages and then review the next year, review those 2 messages, add 2 more messages, sometimes 3, sometimes the class is very advanced. Well, we also have to remember, Chief, not everyone grows up in our community. And I think that's really important for our audience today. People are moving in and out of communities all the time. We don't know what their baseline knowledge is on fire life safety education. We don't know if the families practice fire drills at home, or even if they have working smoke alarms or they test those alarms. So there's an opportunity for us through that community risk assessment to really understand, are we reaching all of our audiences, and are we reaching those high-risk audiences with our messaging?
Wow. Well, as I'm sitting here listening to your comments, and anybody in the audience that maybe wants to tell us something that they do to help get the message out, what technology they might use, uh, I thought about use their peers. Use a 4th grader to talk to them about going home tonight and checking their smoke detector to make sure it works versus having an adult or even a firefighter do that. So as I was listening to you, thought, yep, that's an idea. And, I mean, my grandkids at 11 and 14, 14 not so much because, he's like an adult. But the 11-year-old, she still goes online and looks at things and stuff like that. But that may be an option, is to get some of your peers or some of the kids' peers to talk. It's not going to be long. If they talk for 20 seconds, that would be long. But so that's an idea. And I don't see anything. Nobody's jumping on here from any of the audience. So
Chief, I've got one more thing to add on that as well.
Sure.
So when our regional school district went to the International Baccalaureate program and it was career driven, superintendent reached out to the fire chief and me and said, we're interested in running International Baccalaureate. He explained to me what it was. I said, yeah, we're on board. And there was intern time to where high school students could learn firefighting skills, law enforcement skills, EMT skills, and then they could come and shadow with us at the fire department. And just before I retired in 2018, I was able to utilize some of those high school students that had previously gone through our elementary and middle school fire and life safety education programming. I did just what you suggested. I used them as peer to peer education, and they were able to go in the elementary school with us, still get school credits. So it still was part of their educational international baccalaureate, but they were able to, at either juniors or seniors, share very basic but important fire and life safety education with younger elementary school students. And sometimes it was to their younger brothers or sisters, and they did an outstanding job.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned it a minute ago, so I know for the audience, I jump around a lot, but I'm making notes based upon what Michael's saying. Is immigrants in our
Yes.
communities? Not talking about the politics of immigration, but we all know there are houses in our districts that there may be 12 people living in. They
Yes.
may or may not have smoke detectors. So, how do you go about identifying those kind of risks, Chief Lieutenant? Sorry.
So one of the things that we always looked at is we rely on our teachers, and one of the welcoming things is we were always invited to professional development, and I actually facilitated a segment during our professional development days. So teachers, educators always have days set aside for professional development. School students are home. They're not in session that day, and professional development does just that. It allows our educators an opportunity to stay abreast of emerging topics. Some of our educators were bilingual or multilingual, and that was very helpful, especially when a child gets scared or an adult is injured or ill, or the child is injured or ill. Many times I found in my career as an EMT, we would find that those patients would revert to their first spoken language. And this is when it really opened my eyes that, we need to be more versed or build a network of bilingual, multilingual uh, translators who can help us during those emergent and non emergent times. A scared child is not a child that's going to learn, a scared child's going to shut down. So we need to make sure that our messaging, our messaging is in a way that they're going to receive the information in a positive way. And many times when they can't understand us, and our physical demonstrations appear to be threatening to them, they're going to get scared and they're not going to remember what to do. Likewise, with their parents, sometimes the students are very good at speaking English. They can help be a translator with parents or caregivers at home to be able to get this important messaging there. Some cultures, remember, Chief, they don't even know what a smoke alarm is. So we have to remember that everyone should have that same opportunity to stay safe. Everyone should have that same opportunity to escape a home fire alive. Everyone should have that same opportunity for early notification. So, counselors, educators within the school, other community groups. So, part of our stakeholders group, we should have community advocates that serve that special population, that what I'm going to consider a high risk population because of the language barriers. And it may even be the clergy within the church or their faith based um, facilities. There may be more of a relationship with some of the clergy, with some of the faith based facilities versus even with the schools, especially if the child is homeschooled. And that brings up a whole nother unique topic is, are our homeschooled students receiving the same fire and life safety education? Because again, they're not in the traditional classroom. How do we get that messaging out there? And this is where technology, media, social media, or reaching out to those populations here in Michigan, southern Michigan, and northern Indiana, we have a lot of Amish population. So how are we able to engage them? And we have taken our fire safety trailer and we have taught them similar techniques, and even more critical because they're using open flame for heating. And many times they may have a lot of family members in that home, in that dwelling. And most fires, as we know, occur when we're sleeping at night. So there's an opportunity to educate, empower, and inform in all aspects in all populations.
Yeah. Well, you again and again you're going to go back to your relationship building. You mentioned about the relationship with teachers. They'll be
Yep.
able to tell you the conditions at home. The other
Yes.
thing I would tell you, you mentioned the homeschool. I just happened. I needed to go to the zoo and take some pictures for somebody that wanted some pictures of a certain animal there. So I went on a, by myself, and I see all these parents with kids there, and it was their homeschooling association, Zoo Day.
Yes.
So they actually have sort of like associations. So if you figure out who has the homeschool association, you can help get that word to them through that
That's
program,
right.
through their group as well. So there's an idea.
Another one
So
for
let's go
preschool,
quick.
because many of the individuals that haven't made it into our public school system yet are preschools. And I've had firefighters tell me, no, the child's too young to learn anything about fire and life safety education. And I say just to the contrary. If we educate early and we educate often and we start building that muscle memory, that young child is not going to be the one that hides under the bed, hides in the closet, or gets scared, or even engages in touching tools, matches, and lighters to start the fire because of curiosity. It's all about making sure we're sharing information, sharing past data, and data, again, part of community risk reduction. Data drives everything that we should be doing, whether it's at our local level, our regional level, or our state level. We need to know what our data is and share that in a positive way so that we can use that as a teachable moment and prevent tragedy from happening to another family. The public's interest is typically at peak at and soon after emergent times. And we know this in broadcast media, we know this in the fire service, but weeks and months later, people become desensitized to that family that died in the house fire. It's just another number. And we don't want to be vultures. We want to be sensitive, but we also need to make sure we're ready for that community engagement soon after the event. We don't want to be disrespectful to the family, but that's when I believe the fire service should be engaging with the media. And many times we don't. And then the media has to go out and find their own story. And it's usually the nasty neighbor that doesn't like the government, doesn't like anybody. We need to be in charge of our own story. And I'm a big advocate of that. And our team at the station where I'm affiliated with, the television station, we all work together on that. We're all part of a dynamic team, and we all want to make sure we get the right information out to the right people at the right time. And anybody on this webinar has ever gone through Emergency Management Institute Public Information Officer, that's part of what's in the curriculum is right message to the right people at the right time. And it's nothing different. So those are opportunities. Again, it's tragic when we have to be reactive, but we can be proactive to prevent another tragedy from happening.
Yeah. Well, back when America Burning was first released, the big thing was smoke detectors as a result of that
Yes.
report, and there are many other things in there as well. And I know Dr. Lori Moore Merrill, our U.S. Fire Administrator, just is sick to learn about children who die in fires, anybody that dies in a fire without a working smoke detector. In today's environment, Chief, is there an excuse for a fire department to not have smoke detectors on the engine, on the ladder, to be able to share, to check, make sure they got one, check, make sure they're working? I mean, isn't there an excuse for a fire department not to be able to get them for free?
In my opinion, no.
Mind
First
it. I
alert
agree
is,
with you.
yeah, and First Alert's been with me, but Kidda is out there as well. I've worked with both organizations, but First Alert has been with us for the 30 years. We've been very blessed, very fortunate. They're a major partner with us. Also, Lowe's Home Improvement Warehouse. They've been with us for 30 years. They were the two first partners that we worked with besides broadcast media, and they're still with us today. And I think that's a big testimony because they believe in what we do, and they are the reason why the program continues to succeed. We continue to provide our local fire departments. And one of the things E.S.C.A.P.E is it's a nonprofit 501c3. So we're able to secure grant dollars. We're able to secure foundation monies. And we continue to make sure that smoke alarms are a top priority. And now with the 10-year alarms, we sell it to the standpoint that when people install those alarms, especially older adults, gone are the days of them climbing up and down on ladders or chairs, because the slip and fall hazards as we age continues to dramatically increase. So with the 10-year alarms, we're not replacing those batteries once or twice a year. This weekend in many parts of the United States, the time is going to change. The clocks are going to turn back. Typically under the old campaigns, we always used to talk about change your clocks, change your batteries. Now it's change your clocks, check your alarms to make sure that we're testing them, making sure that they're working. And more fire departments, small, medium, and large, are installing smoke alarms. But for anybody on this webinar, there's other community partners that are doing it as well. And the American Red Cross has done an outstanding job. They started their Sound the Alarm campaign in 2015 with the goal of reducing fire deaths from 2015 to 2020 by 25% all across the country. Many of the chapters are still continuing chapter-based smoke alarm installation programs. So if you don't have the personnel, if you don't have the commitment, if you don't have the inventory, reach out to your local American Red Cross chapter, and many of those chapters can help fill that void as well. It's about collaboration. It's about partnerships. And rather than focusing on what we can't do, one of the things we teach at the National Fire Academy, let's figure out ways that we can continue to meet the outcomes.
Yeah. Well, there, as you said, there are lots of opportunities to get free smoke detectors, and even I know some fire chiefs said, "Oh well, we can't put them in because our lawyer says we'll have liability if we put them in." Well, sometimes lawyers give advice. They don't have You don't have to follow their advice all the time. Not that you shouldn't follow it many times, but the other thing, and I know the 10-year battery. And if Mrs. Buckman was standing here, we just got 4 brand new 10-year smoke detectors in. This is Tuesday, so it would have been yesterday. And so one is sitting here on my desk yet, but the other 3 are up. And but she gave me heck when 2 of them quit working, and I said, well, I'm just going to get 4 and we'll replace them all. And so you still had the 9-volt batteries, but the other thing is when you have here's a suggestion. This came from Jesse Marks, a firefighter on the Evansville Fire Department. He's been on there now 6 years. When he first started, he put a 9-volt battery in his fire coat pocket. And when he went in a house, he would check the detector. If it didn't work, he'd put a battery in it. Uh, so that's one way that firefighters can help, because he didn't want to have to pick up a kid or an
That's right.
adult for that matter either, because we didn't have a $10, $20 smoke detector. And so the 10-year battery has taken away the excuse of like they're taking it out to use in the Nintendo or whatever. So
Right.
but again, 10-year smoke detectors are not $50 like they used to be. You
Right.
can get them for like under $20.
Yep.
So in
And
some
I want
cases
to
you
clear up the myth and misconception too on the we're going to get sued, because I still get chiefs, I still get township supervisors that tell me that Vision 2020 worked with Johns Hopkins before COVID 2019, and Johns Hopkins University did a study, and they found no governmental entities, no nonprofit entities in the United States have ever been sued successfully for installing smoke alarms. I want to add to that, though, as long as we're following NFPA 72. No double sticky tape, no plungers, no quick in and out. And we've had those types of issues that I've been made aware of. And we ask, partners not to do that, because that's not a safe choice. The manufacturers never put that in their instructions on double sticky tape, for example, to install those alarms. And the other thing is the reason why we went from giveaway now to installation. Many times when we'd run medical aid calls, we'd still see those alarms still in the box.
Yeah, we have the same thing here. The state of Indiana State Fire Marshal has given away smoke detectors for like 10 years. And I'm just going to say for the first 5 years, we just gave them to the fire department. The fire department gave them out. Then they found out, well, they weren't putting them in. So now the state fire marshal will give a fire department, whatever, pick a number, 10 detectors. Then 6 months from now, you got to provide who you gave them to, what their address was, so that we know that it actually got put in. So
Exactly.
that is an accountability system, but in this day and age, we all need to be accountable sometimes, and that helps us keep things on track and help. We're not wasting money.
Absolutely.
Here's a pretty tight guy.
This year, we ended up having First Alert for the first time ever. I mean, they've always donated smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, but they called me up and they said, hey, we've got an opportunity to get some escape ladders out in the community. And they gave us 157 escape ladders. And if you remember the price of the escape ladders, they're in that $50-$55 range if you look at your, big box store. And we gladly accepted them. I had 3 pallets come in by way of semi, and we've gotten those out to our fire departments. And the fire departments then can decide how those are to be used, making sure they're going in 2-story homes. But that's what partnerships are all about. When you can continue, and I communicate the data to our partners regularly so they know our outreach efforts. They know what our tragic news stories when that child died or that family died, so that we're all informed. And it's not being reactionary, it's actually being informational so that we can make sure that our stakeholders continue to understand what they can do in keeping Michigan safe. And that's the name of our campaign, Keep Michigan Safe. SAFE stands for smoke alarms for everyone.
Yep. So we're coming up on, been doing this for about 50 minutes. I'm going to go back to the group that's anybody in the audience that, has a question or comment they'd like to share with the group or ask Michael a question. We usually try to wrap up at 50 minutes to give you all a chance to talk. And I'm going back looking at my notes here to see if I cover most everything else. I
I'm going to
guess
give a shout out to my colleagues from New Jersey because I teach for the New Jersey Division of Fire Safety, and several are on this call today. So Phil and others, hello. I just saw that in the notes section here. So
I guess anybody listening today knows that you have a passion for fire prevention, fire safety. And I know it talks about the number of children that died. That's what got you interested. But what has sustained your interest? How have you sustained that interest for now 30 years?
the big thing is when we see that older adult who still has no smoke alarms in her home, she's on a fixed income. She's really proud. She's really humbled and embarrassed to ask for assistance. Or that child who sees you in the community and with his or her parents says, that's the firefighter who actually taught me to get out and stay out. So not only do they remember us, which is fine, they're remembering the message. And they're so proud to share that message with their parents or their caregivers at home. And that's how we raise a fire safe generation. And I think that's probably the most rewarding. And the team that I have that's part of our program, and that's our broadcasting team. I've always said I have 3 families. I have my family, fire service family, and my broadcasting family, because we all are in it for the right reason. We don't want to see people, unfortunately, injured or ill. And those of us in this profession, both you and me and others, we've seen the devastating effects that fire has had on one's mental health, both from the first responder standpoint, but also from the civilian standpoint. And I think that's really the driving force. And one of the things that we really promote at the National Fire Academy is when you're empowered, when you have the ability to do good with and for others, that's part of our sworn duty as well. That's part of our responsibility. And knowledge is power. And knowledge can save a life. And when we can continue to advocate together and speak as a unified voice, we will continue to make our community safer. Our job will never be done. And we're certainly going to have the next tragic fire that's going to happen someplace in this country within the next 24 hours, just looking at the statistics. But that should never be the reason why we give up. That should make us more passionate, more motivated to be able to continue to advocate both at the state, the local, and even the national level. And we need more people like you and me who are at that national level continuing to advocate for best practices, because our political arena, the dollars aren't getting any bigger. They continue to decrease. And there's always other causes and other initiatives that are out there. So we need to make sure the fire service is a stakeholder and always has a voice at the table.
And that having a voice at the table is so important.
Mhm.
Knocking on the door and asking to be let in, and being professional when they let you in, and communicate with them and collaborate with them. Don't dictate, are all
Right.
key things to having a successful fire prevention program. So I don't see any questions popping up, Michael. So we do, encourage attendees to share this webinar. You will get the video recording of it probably in the next couple hours. We ask you to share it on social media, share it with your officers, your firefighters, anybody that you can share it with to help get the message out. We appreciate everybody's participation, but especially Lieutenant Michael McLear, who has a very unique passion for fire prevention. So, Lieutenant, I'll let you have any closing comments.
Absolutely. If I can echo what former Superintendent Dr. Dennis O'Neill used to say when he'd come into our classes at the end of the 6 day or 2 week session, now's your opportunity to make a difference. Now is your opportunity to go back in your community and look at what you're doing. Don't look at what you're doing as right and wrong. Look at what you're doing and look for ways to improve. Our communities continue to change. And hopefully, this webinar has inspired you to be able to make safer choices, but to also dedicate more time towards prevention, because the best emergency is the emergency that doesn't happen.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate everybody who's been on here today. If you have questions, suggestions for other webinars, uh, I never do this, but I never put a slide up, but send an email to jmbuckman3rd@gmail.com, and we will be put it on the consideration list. We are starting to plan webinars for 2025. We do still, the VCOS does still intend to do weekly webinars to provide you with pertinent and relevant information to help you do your job and improve firefighter safety as well as the safety of the public. And so, with that, uh, thank you all very much for coming. God bless each and every one of you. Have a safe day and a safe Halloween. Take care. Bye bye.